Hi, I'm Cheryl Sloboda from So Much Cosplay. Today I'm going to be making a peasant blouse. And the really neat thing about this particular project is it's got an adjustable sleeve. The sleeve can be pulled up for a totally different look than if the sleeve were left down. So there's all different ways that you can wear something like this, and it doesn't have to be for cosplay like we have here on this mannequin. You can actually use this for any kind of garment, and you can make this sort of adjustable sleeve. So let's talk about a little bit how this is constructed. It's really simple, and it's made with about 4 pieces total, and all of the instructions on how to make this particular peasant blouse is going to be on the website. So I have 2 pieces here that are made of this gauze fabric. This is double gauze, and you can see that it's width of fabric for the body pieces. So you'll need 2 sections of those width of fabric. Now that seems like an awful lot of fabric, but remember the neckline is going to be gathered with elastic, so you do want a long piece of fabric to start with. And so that's why I cut it width of fabric. The sleeves are very simple, and they're just 2 rectangles, and they attach to the garment on the sides. There's all different treatments that you can do to the sleeve, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Okay? So once you have your pieces cut out, it's time to think about how you're going to construct the mechanism for the sleeve to adjust up and down. And the way that I do that is with a turning tool. And what I'm going to do is cut a strip of fabric. Now this is not made out of the same gauze fabric. This is made out of muslin. And the reason I'm using this fabric instead of the gauze is because the gauze has stretch to it, and this is going to be more tightly woven, so it will not pull apart when I'm pulling on the ties that I make for the sleeve adjustment. So what I did was I cut a strip of fabric, and then I'm going to sew this into a tube. So I have that ready here at the machine, so I'm going to move over here, and we're going to get that sewn up. So for this tube, you're going to need 2 different widths of tube total. And for this one, let me just get this set up right, is a wider piece, and I'm going to sew it with a 1/4 inch seam. So I'm just going to line this up and get that seam sewn. Now I have it all pinned, and I'm going to take the pins out as I go. And this is going to create the tube. It's just a, fabric folded in half. You can iron it, but I typically don't, because I don't want to have a crease that I'm going to have to worry about taking out later. So I'm just going to sew down the rest of this. Now, of course, you're going to want to use threads that match, but I'm using a contrasting one so you can see it. We're almost at the end, so you can see how fast this goes. All right, there we go. And there we are at the end, and we're just going to trim that off. So here we have the wider strip made, and you can see that I've already made one that's skinnier, and these are going to be the ties. The skinny ones are going to be the ties, and the wider one is going to be the casing that the ties actually go inside of. So we're going to go over and we're going to turn this skinny tube into one of the ties. Now, when you're looking at your set of turning tools, comes with different widths, and that's how you determine which one you go that goes inside of the tube. You want to use the width that's going to fit. Now I know that this skinny tube fits this little guy. So what you do is you go ahead and you insert that into the piece, and then you use the rod. And what you're going to do is just kind of catch a little bit of the fabric, and you're going to use the tube inside to help push it so that it creates. Now on some of these skinnier ones, your seam allowance can cause a little bit of a problem to get over that edge. And you're just going to have to work it back and forth until you get it to start to turn, and there it goes. And then you'll see just how fast this turns. And it'll actually gather up onto the rod, and you'll just keep pushing till you get it to, and you can eventually go off the edge. You don't want it to bunch up too much because then you'll have trouble getting it to go. And you're going to get it till it's going to come out the other end. Here we go. It's a work in progress. So there we go, all right? And you can just see how quick this is. I mean, if you've ever tried to do this with safety pins or anything, you'll know that this can be quite a challenge. And look at how skinny our little tie has ended up being. So now we just finish pulling the rest of it through. And there we go to the very end of the tie. So we've got that, and we'll just have to, work the other end to get the rod out. Give that a good press, and you're ready to go with the tie. When you're making the tube that your ties go inside of, you're going to want to press that so that the seam is centered, and that's going to be underneath on the underside of your seam. Now I have that ready to go here on the machine, and you can see here on the sleeve that I've set one of the edges for the casing that our ties are going to go in, and you would just go ahead and set this up to sew down the other side. And it goes nice and quick. You want to make sure you stay close to that edge. There we go. See how quick that was? All right, now what you're going to do then is you will need to take your tie, and once you've pressed it and you fold it in half, you will take a safety pin and feed this through this tube on the sleeve. Here, let me lay that out. Feed it through so that you have the two ties hanging out the end, and then what you're going to do once this is inside here, inside this tube, you're going to stitch it, and you're going to want to make sure that you do a reverse stitch just to make sure that the ties stay inside of your casing, and then when you tug on these ties, they're not going to pull out of the garment itself. You're going to have a nice secure place for it to pull up and down. So I just want to show you again on the garment how that works. And again, because it's been sewn back and forth at the top, you'll be able to pull on it with no problem. So there are other treatments that you can do for this sleeve. You can see here that I've left this sleeve open almost like a butterfly sleeve, but you can close this seam up and actually put either a tie or elastic on the edge to create more of a peasant sleeve or a puffy sleeve. And don't worry about the rest of the cosplay, because in the next episode, you'll be able to learn how to make the corset.